Welcome everyone to today's talk with Jasmine, talking about the degree Apprentice, and she does electrical and electronics engineering. Today is actually, this week is actually National Apprenticeship Week, and it's a week to celebrate apprenticeships and actually trying to give you an insight into the different types of apprenticeships that actually exist. In addition, today we'll be using a live chat function, what's a Q&A, where you can actually enter your different questions you'd like to ask Jasmine, and then we'll get these answered at the end. In the meantime, I'd like to introduce you to Jasmine, and I hope you enjoy the talk today.
Cool, thanks James. So yeah, as James said, I'm Jasmine, and my my background is on the screen there. So today I'm going to be talking to you about what being an apprentice is like, and also what doing electrical and electronics engineering is like as well. And hopefully I can convince you that doing a degree apprenticeship is a really good opportunity, and hopefully inspire some of you to go down the same route. So the first question I'm going to ask and answer is what actually is engineering? Because personally, when I was in school, I didn't hear about engineering until I actually went to college to study engineering when I was 16. So some of you on the call might not exactly know what it is. In very simple terms, what it is problem solving. Every single engineer problem solves, whether that's kind of taking a product that already exists and fixing it to make it better than it already is, or whether it's seeing a problem in society or in a particular industry and going, okay, I'm going to design something that solves this problem. That's essentially what engineering is. And there's all sorts of different types of engineering, but I'm going to be focusing on electrical and electronics today. So what is my actual role as an electrical and electronics engineer? So I support existing products in my business. So I work for a company called Edwards Vacuum. We make vacuum products, which is basically we sell to manufacturers so that they can create a vacuum like in space, which is very clean. So they can basically manufacture things in that very clean environment. So my job as an electrical engineer is to support our products that we sell. And this is an example that you can see there. This is a type of pump that we sell. So if we sell this pump to a customer and it breaks or something's going wrong with it, then it comes back to me as a technical support engineer and I have to fix it. Now, this isn't the only kind of role that you have to do as an electrical engineer. You can also do design. That's a different part. That's sort of the beginning of the stage of a product when you actually design it. But I'm sort of at the later end where when it breaks, I have to fix it. So alongside that, there's a lot of investigation and testing that goes on. So when we get a product back and it's broken, obviously we need to find out what's wrong with it and why it's broken and how we can make sure that it doesn't break in the future with all the other products that we sell. So you can see there, I do a lot of practical hands-on tasks like soldering, kind of making test systems and things like that to try and work out what is wrong with it and how we can recreate the problem in order to know how to solve it. But I also get to do a little bit of software. So software, not as in depth as an actual software engineer, but I do get to do a little bit of programming, which I really enjoy. And finally, quite a key part of my role is working with others. And I think this goes for pretty much everyone at my company. We're a really very kind of collaborative company. So I work a lot with the people in my own team. If I can't work out what's wrong with something, I can ask my colleagues, or I can go to someone in software. If I'm struggling a bit with the software, I can go and talk to people in software and they can help me. So I really get to kind of work with others, and there's a lot of teamwork that happens as well. So next I'm going to show you a few projects that I've worked on myself, just to kind of show you that as an apprentice, you're not kind of, left to do all the unimportant jobs. You do get put on real projects, real products, and you do get to actually design stuff and get involved. So this is a product, this is very messy, and that's the reason why is because it's a prototype. So the final product that I hopefully make won't look like this. This is a test box that I was tasked with designing. So one of the products that we sell, there were a few components on it that kept breaking. So they wanted me to design a test box that basically tests the components and checks whether they're going to break or not, or if they've already broken. So here you can see the user interface. So this is what the person using the test box is going to see. There's a few LEDs that shows them whether the product has passed or failed. You've got some buttons that start the testing. You've got all of these electronic components, so I got to solder all of these by hand and kind of test the prototype and make sure that it was working. So that was really practical and hands-on. And you've got here, this is the microcontroller development board. So a microcontroller is basically like, it's kind of like it's a computer chip that's kind of like the brain of a product. So it's the part that you program and you put, so you put some code into it, and then it will execute whatever the code is, and it will kind of controls everything around it. So all of the LEDs here, all of the buttons, all the other kind of, you've got some op amps here if you know what those are. The microcontroller is like the brain, and it connects to everything through these wires, and it will kind of tell everything what to do. So that's the test box project. This other project is something that I worked on last year, and this was really fun. I worked on this with another apprentice. His name was Sam. So what we had to do was basically build this test system. So we wanted to run these modules here for I think a few months, and we wanted to have a computer basically constantly taking measurements. But we had to build all of this from scratch. So we had to do lots of soldering by hand, lots of wiring and kind of passing them through these little holes. We had to make these heat sink and fan kind of parts. So we had to tap these holes. Tapping holes is kind of like you drill the inside of the thread of the hole. So we did all of this by hand, and again, it was very practical and hands-on. And as part of that project, there was some more software involved. So this is a data logger, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It logs data, but you kind of have to program it to be able to take measurements automatically and then put them into an Excel spreadsheet. So this was another bit of coding that I found really enjoyable. Also frustrating. This is some of these types of equipment, they don't have much support. So it can be quite difficult to try and work out how they work. But in the end, we got it working. So that was really fun. And the last one, really quickly, is one that a project that I was working on that actually failed, or that actually we made a mistake with. So I was working with a senior engineer on this project, so someone who's been doing engineering for basically all his life. And what we wanted to do was set up this product and run it to do some experiments on it. But the mistake that we made is that this is a low voltage product, which means it can only go to about 200 volts, and we put 400 volts on it. So as you can imagine, it didn't go well. There was a huge bang, and obviously we turned off the power, we unplugged it, we checked what was wrong, and this product had blown up. So luckily the product has been designed well, so everything was safe, even though we did something we shouldn't have done accidentally. It was completely safe, so no one got hurt. It was just a really loud bang, and you can see here the smoke, the black stuff in the jelly there is the smoke that's kind of come off of the components that have exploded. But you know, I'm just trying to show you that as an apprentice, you get to do some real stuff, and sometimes you make a mistake. But you know, everyone makes mistakes. I was working with someone who was a professional engineer that had been doing it for ages, and even he missed, you know, that we were putting it through much higher voltage than we should have been. And you know, I didn't get told off. It was just a learning experience, and now in the future, I will definitely check before I put high voltage through products. So just a quick kind of look at where I've come from academically and what kind of why I chose to do a degree apprenticeship. So I went to a university technical college, or a UTC. You might have heard of these. They're basically specific colleges for if you want to go into engineering, construction, or design. So I went to one of these when I was 16 to 18 because I enjoyed engineering and I wanted to kind of study it further. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to do when I finished at UTC, there are a few different thoughts that I had. So the first one was that I knew I wanted to move out. I'm quite an independent person. I was sick of my parents telling me what to do, and I wanted to move out of my home. I also didn't want debt, so I knew that I could move out if I went to university, but I really didn't like the idea of, you know, being kind of stereotypically students are always broke all the time, and you know, once they finish, they've got like 50k debt. You know, even though there's ways to pay that off, and it kind of is paid off in a very good way, I just didn't like the idea of having that debt. And the other thing was that I wanted to kind of later on in my career work towards chartership. So chartership is basically a qualification. It's like a special qualification that shows that you're very good at your job. So you can become a chartered engineer, and that's something that I was interested in. And although you don't necessarily need a bachelor's degree to get chartered, generally pretty much everyone who is chartered will have a bachelor's degree and maybe a master's degree as well. So I knew I wanted a degree, but I didn't like the idea of having, sorry, excuse me, I didn't like the idea of having the debt. And finally, after 2 years of being at college and learning all about engineering, all about the different types of engineering, I really loved engineering. And I knew that if I went to university, it was going to be mostly academic. But what I wanted to be doing was actually doing engineering. I really wanted to be an engineer. So with kind of all of these thoughts in my head, I realized that doing a degree apprenticeship would be the best option because it allows me to move out. I don't get any student debt because my company is sponsoring me and they actually pay for the degree itself. So I don't have any student debt at all. I can get chartered because I will have a degree at the end of it, and I've also got a job. I'm actually employed as an engineer, so I'm getting to do all this practical hands-on stuff that I wanted to do when I was in college. So a quick look at the recruitment process. I'm going to go through this very quickly, but it's quite different to applying to university, so if you are interested, it's kind of good to know what you need. So the first stage is online applications, and I would recommend going to the Find an Apprenticeship government website because pretty much any apprenticeship that's available will be on this website. And for this stage, you'll need a CV. So try to, you know, go to your teachers, go to your parents, maybe your family members, and get them to just check your CV and make sure that it really displays, you know, all the good qualities that you have, all the experience, work experience or volunteering that you have. And you may be expected to do a few tests, a few maybe maths or English tests, and maybe even some kind of like verbal reasoning games. So do be prepared for that as well. So then if you get through the online application stage, you may be sent to an assessment centre. And what this is about is the company wants to see what you're like as a person. What are you like when you're put in a room with maybe 20 other candidates for the apprenticeship? How are you going to interact with people? They'll give you a few activities to do, maybe with others or by yourself. This is an activity that I got to do when I joined Edwards, or sorry, before I joined Edwards, during my assessment centre. We had to build this little motorbike guy from scratch, from like all these little parts, and then try and make him run off of salt water. So the assessment centre is quite fun, but you are being assessed, you know, you are being kind of observed on how you interact with other people. And then the final stage is just an interview. So they really want to kind of go back to your CV in the beginning, have a look at the experience you have a look at how you've portrayed leadership skills, communication skills, teamwork skills, all of that kind of stuff. So they get down to the kind of the nitty gritty at that stage. And then hopefully, if they still like you, they will offer you a job. So finally, got 5 minutes. I just want to go through why I think apprenticeships are great, kind of my kind of key points of why I think they're a great option. And you can see me there, that's me when I first joined with 2 of the other apprentices, and we're at a careers fair. That was a good time. So the great thing I think is that you have an almost guaranteed job once you finish your apprenticeship. And this is something that I know lots of people who go to university, they finish their degree and then they have a really difficult time trying to get a job. And they maybe can't even get a job in the subject that they wanted to kind of go into. You know, they might do a psychology degree and then end up having to work in something completely different. But because I love engineering so much, I really just want to be an engineer. And when you do an apprenticeship, I think the rate is that 90% of apprentices get a job after they finish their apprenticeship. And specifically with my company, with Edwards Vacuum, you are guaranteed a job. So it's in my contract that once I finish, I will have a job at Edwards. So, you know, that's really peace of mind for me that once I finish, I will be able to continue working as an engineer. Next is financial independence. So I mentioned this earlier. You know, having money is great. Having enough money is great. Lots of my friends that are students, they're kind of struggling. You know, they can't necessarily get all the things that they want to get. because they have to prioritize food and stuff like that. You know, for me, that's something that's really important, that as an apprentice, although your wage can start off quite low, but you can always, you know, that it's different for every apprenticeship, and you can set your own standards as to what, you know, how low you will go. But for me at Edwards, you know, the wage is perfectly fine, and it actually goes up quite quickly because we're assessed once a year and we're given a pay rise once a year. So I really like that I can kind of just have a bit of spare money and spend it on myself if I want to. So the experience in industry, yeah, this is another thing. If you go to university for 3 years and you study engineering, you're gonna get very little actual experience as an engineer. So you're learning about engineering, but you're not necessarily doing much engineering, unless of course you took like a year out and did a year in industry, or if you, like, over the summer holidays, you did like a placement in an engineering company. But, you know, for me, like I've said many times, I love being an engineer. I love that every single day I get to come into work and I get to do engineering and be an engineer. And that's also very valuable in your career in the future. You know, if you want to go to a different company once you finish your apprenticeship, you've got 4 years of experience, maybe even more. You've got a lot of years of experience. Whereas compared to a graduate who's just come out of full-time university, they're probably going to have a lot less experience than you. So it's really valuable to have on your CV as well. And finally, the career prospects. So my company is really great because it is a global company. So Edwards has branches in America, in Japan and China, I think in the Middle East as well, in other parts of the UK as well, in Burgess Hill and Clevedon. So in terms of my career prospects, those global jobs are available to me as soon as I finish my apprenticeship. So if I wanted to go and work in any of those countries, pretty much anywhere in the world, I can go and do that. And, you know, that's something that's really exciting for me. It's not for everyone, but it's something, it's an opportunity that's there. And, you know, again, if I was at university, I wouldn't necessarily have those. I wouldn't necessarily have that option. So that is the end of my presentation. And I just want to wish you guys good luck in your kind of futures in the coming years. And, you know, maybe some of you will choose to do a degree apprenticeship, and if you do, then good luck. And if you don't, also good luck. And, you know, I hope you do well in your application processes. And if you have any questions, I will take them now.
Thank you very much, Jasmine.
That's all right.
So I've got a few questions coming in, and just to remind everyone who's watching, if you want to use the Q&A chat, please submit your questions and then we'll get them answered for you as best we can. So the first question we've got coming is, what's your favourite part of your job?
Ooh, I really like the coding. And that doesn't, I don't think I should be a software engineer, but I really like the coding because it's quite logical, it's quite fun and satisfying to see you put something into a computer and then it does it. That's quite interesting. But overall I like the practical stuff.
And is it quite challenging, the coding side, or is it quite?
Yeah, I think that's partially why I enjoy it. Coding's quite difficult sometimes, and a lot of the equipment that we work with here is kind of maybe a bit outdated, so it can be quite difficult to kind of communicate with something or work out how to communicate with it. But it's a challenge, but then when you do it, it's even more satisfying because you've done all the work to get it working.
Brilliant. The next question will come is, why did you decide to select a degree apprentice?
As in, like, opposed to just normal, like a lower?
I think so, okay. Yeah.
So mostly because I know that having a degree can be quite important. You know, some jobs will require you to have a degree. And also, if you don't have a degree, then kind of, you know, how far you can progress can be limited in the future. So I just wanted to make sure that I had a degree under my belt once I'd finished the apprenticeship, and that's why I chose to go for it. It's very difficult, but I think it will be worth it at the end.
And how long is your degree apprentice?
I didn't say that. So it's 4 years. and then it's 4 years to finish the apprenticeship, and then after that with Edwards we're contracted to stay on for another 1.5 years as kind of a way of paying back the money that we've essentially, you know, that they've invested in us. But you can, if you want to leave before that, you can pay the money and leave. But yeah.
No, thank you, Jasmine. The next question we've got coming in is, what support are you provided during your degree apprenticeship?
So a whole bunch. I would say the university that I go to, the University of Chichester, it depends. Some lecturers are really supportive. They are, you know, they understand that you're a degree apprentice and not a full-time student, so they're willing to kind of like extend deadlines or kind of change things around if they know that you can't, you know, because we have to work full-time. We can't just pop into the university. So the university is quite understanding with that. And then in terms of the work side, my work is extremely supportive. The managers here are really great. They really, you know, again, they understand that we have university commitments. We have to do coursework and exams and revision. So they understand that sometimes we need an extra day off of work to study. And they, yeah, everyone at my company is really supportive. Anyone that I need to ask for help, they are happy to help me. So yeah, tons of support.
I've got a question come in. What you might want to say for what it is exactly, it's about salaries.
That's right.
But in terms of salaries, right, so the question is, what's your starting salary and can you see it rise throughout the apprenticeship?
Yeah, so as I said before, the starting salary will be different for every company that you go to. For Edwards Vacuum, it's 16,000 before tax. So I think it ends up at about 14,000 once you take away the tax, which is completely enough to live off of. And the way that it rises throughout, so you get 2 pay rises a year. One which is in April, which is the whole company gets a pay rise as long as you kind of do all your goals and objectives that you've been asked to do. But that's like everyone in the company will get that. But then as an apprentice, you get an extra pay rise, which happens a year from when you start. So when September rolls around, we have a review of how the year has gone for us. And if it's gone well, which it has so far for all of us, I think you get a 1.5k pay rise. So it goes up by at least 1.5k every year. And in when you enter your 3rd year, I think it goes up by 3k. So the number, it does kind of increase, obviously, as you become more valuable to the company, as you're learning more, they do increase your pay. And I'm not sure if it works like that at other companies, but I just know that at Edwards Vacuum, that's the way that we do it.
Thank you, Jasmine. Not always the easiest question to talk about. The next question I've got for you would be skills. So what type of skills, thinking about at school, what could you do now, thinking about going to future employment, what skills would you say would be really essential to needed and required when looking at apprenticeships and stuff?
So apprenticeships are a combination of academic and sort of non-academic skills. So I think that if you enjoy practical work, I think that's a very key one, because you are going to be at work doing practical, you know, you're going to be practically applying your knowledge and working. So, you know, if you really enjoy practical work, then that's good. I'd say communication is very important, but that's kind of true for anyone, whether you go to university or whether you do an apprenticeship. You need to be good at communicating. Or at least kind of working towards it, being comfortable with speaking to, you know, your team members and people around you and asking questions and things like that. I think specifically, I think you need to be quite good at self-motivating. Degree apprenticeships specifically can be quite difficult. You know, you're doing a degree part-time while working full-time. So you've got to make sure that you can motivate yourself to, you know, work on your coursework in your free time, you know, study in your free time, communicate with your lecturers in your free time. You know, that all kind of has to happen in your free time. So as long as you're motivated enough to kind of push yourself, then I think a degree apprenticeship is you know, is possible to do. Yeah, I think those are the main ones. Yeah.
No, thank you, Jasmine. What would be your best advice in terms of when you to search for degree apprentice and stuff like that? Do say would be the key things to look for?
I think the key thing to look for is it's sort of a non-answer, but just to make sure that what the company is offering is in line with what you want. So if you don't care about salary, then you don't have to care about salary. But if you want to be earning at least 20k, then make sure that you're looking for a company that's earning at least 20k. It's very important that the recruitment process that I spoke about is not only for the company to be sort of interviewing you and seeing if you're a good fit for the company, but it's the other way around as well. You've really got to take advantage of when you're looking at the online applications or when you're going through the assessment centers in the interview. Make sure that you're asking questions about the company, because if you might end up in a company that's not right for you if you don't kind of, pay attention and make sure that you're in the right place that you want to be in. I think that's the best advice that I would give.
No, thank you very much, Jasmine.
That's all right.
And thank you for everyone to attending this degree apprenticeship talk. And we hope you have a great day and look forward to hopefully join us again for another one tomorrow. But in the meantime, thanks very much to everyone attending, and we hope we see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.